Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Money Means Business. My name is Ahmed Nader, and tonight we are going to focus on the national projects of 2023 that took place under the tenure and under the leadership of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, and more specifically focusing on the economic aspect of those national projects that took place over the past year. And of course, it is fitting enough to be celebrating those national projects in the last episode for 2023 of the program of Money Means Business. Of course, we'll be heading to the first report of the episode for tonight, and we'll be returning once again to you on the program, so stay tuned. welcome back. You're still watching Money Means Business. As we did see over the past report, it is economy time, and I'm honored to be having with me in the studio to be shedding more light on the economic events and the biggest national projects and the achievements that took place in this field in 2023 is Dr. Sayyid Al-Kholy, the former Dean of the Faculty of Commerce at Ain Shams University. Thank you very much for being with us tonight, Doctor.
It's a pleasure to be here.
The pleasure is all mine. Doctor, of course, we have seen the efforts of the cabinet, the government, under the leadership of Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, and of course under the directives of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, especially over the past 6 months, maybe turning over the year, to be controlling the prices here in Egypt. How would you see the importance of such a step and the amount of success that the cabinet and the government have achieved in it?
First of all, just a few hours ago, His Excellency Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, the Prime Minister of Egypt, issues there is 7 product. It will be priced by the government: sugar, rice, cooking oil, and cheese, and so on, in order to control the prices and in order to reduce the rate of inflation for all Egyptians. Yes. Of course, in year 2030, we faced a lot of challenge. The last 3 years, it was a very tough years for the whole world, not only in Egypt. For example, the continuing Russian-Ukrainian war affected the supply chain management, supply chain for all over the world, and that is really increase the price of raw materials, which comes through different channels from the world, and that is the reason for, that is the basic reason for inflation, not only in Egypt but worldwide inflation. Yes. And most of the people, most of the country in the world suffer from the inflation. Second of all, in the last 7 months or so more, we have the Israeli and Gaza war, which is really, it became a huge threat for many countries, and President Sisi took a very, very, very important action. He said Sinai is the red line, and nobody will be able to really invade any part of Egypt, and Egypt territory is now safe, and that is the major task for Egyptian in the last 3 years, is to keep Sinai safe and save heaven for Egyptian people. Also in 2023, it was a mega project which introduced, for example, the black sand factory in Kafr Sheikh, and many industrial area and many industrial zone in all different government of Egypt has been established, and we'll start to see the production of all this facility in the near future. So I believe 2024, it will bring more and more factory, more and more industry, whether it's mega industry or feeding industry. And that is very important for the future. We should really focus on industry. We should focus on agriculture. We should focus on attracting foreign direct investment to come and invest in Egypt. I believe the prosperity and the future, which in a couple of days will start a new year and will start a new strategy for investing in our industry. President Sisi, a couple of years ago, we should really introduce the fourth industrial revolution. The world is talking now today about the fifth industrial revolution. So we should follow the steps of the development of technology and bring it here to our territory, to Egypt.
As Doctor, you mentioned a very important point over the past maybe 3 years or maybe 4 years as well, which is fighting inflation here in the country and on a global level as well. How would you see the success of the Egyptian government and, of course, Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli and the Minister of Finance, Dr. Mohammed Maid, to be fighting inflation and the prices that have gone out of control over the past couple of years, especially after the coronavirus pandemic, after the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, and most recently the aggression by Israel against the Palestinians and more specifically against Gaza. How would you see the process that has happened here in terms of fighting inflation, and would you call it a success?
I believe we did a lot in order to keep the prices down in the last year or so. And remember, if we talk about the external environment, we have a lot of threats coming from all over our border in Libya, in Sudan, and in Yemen, in Gaza now.
Yes.
And that is really affected in a way or another the way we overcome the inflation rate. Of course, the Central Bank of Egypt play a very important role. If they don't really control the prices, I believe the inflation will be higher and higher than that. But remember, Egypt, the gross product rate is still in the positive side, which is a positive indicator for the Egyptian economy. A couple of years ago, most of our neighbor country, it was in their growth rate, it was in the negative side. The only
Yes.
country in that area, it was Egypt in the plus side. Of course, before the corona pandemic, our growth rate, it was planning to be to 7%. Now it is down to 3.6%, but we're still in the positive side. I believe it's not only the government, but it is the leader of Egypt. He have the vision which we developed about 8 years ago, Egypt Vision 2030, where we are on the right track. We achieved like 70% of our vision up to this point of time, which is good news. I believe we should all united, the Egyptian people, the government, the leadership of Egypt, we have to stand behind each other in order to fight the inflation, in order to fight the exchange rate and so on. I believe it is not only the problem with the government, it's the problem with the people itself. Because when we talk about currency, it is economy. If we
Yes.
talk about gold, it's economy. But if you let the people trade and so on through Facebook, through social media, trade gold and
The black market in
and
general.
the black market.
Yes.
We should really focus on that to control the black market in order to bring the exchange rate to the lower side and so on, whether it's published by the Central Bank of Egypt. That is very important. We need the cooperation from the Egyptian people. We should stand behind our government, behind our leadership, because I want to really focus on we have threat from all over our border, and we should really stand for our leadership. We stand behind the leadership, and that it shows in the election. Over close
Yes.
to 90% of Egyptian people stand behind their leadership, and I believe President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, he means well for the Egyptian people. He means for all different aspects. For example, the Decent Life Initiative, for all social projects which involve helping poor people in Egypt. And that is very important for Egyptian to go in this direction and so on. But I believe President Sisi will focus in the year 2024 in developing more industry, building more factory. And I always say that in this program we should build more factory than malls. I believe industry, it will play a very important role, because industry, it reduces the unemployment rate, increase the revenue, increase the export to other country and so on. I believe we have an opportunity, and I also believe we should invest more and more in Sinai. Remember the mega project we have the infrastructure in all means, in terms of roads, in terms of tunnel, in terms of bridges, that it's already happened. We have a state-of-the-art infrastructure when it comes to transportation. In order to build an industrial area, I believe Egypt, it will be the industrial hub for Africa and for the Middle East in the very near future, because of our location, because of our logistic infrastructure, because of our energy. We invested heavily in different sources of energy, wind energy, sun energy, solar system, and so on. And now we are investing in the newest technology in power supply, green hydrogen, and so on. I believe all of this, it will start to bring the fruits of this kind of investment we have in the last few years.
Yes, Dr. Sinai, as you've mentioned, it needs a lot of development, and more specifically north of Sinai, to be attracting more Egyptians to be going there and inhabiting the area and having more economic industries and, of course, different fields that could be proliferated over the near future. How would you see the efforts of the political leadership under President Sisi over the past 9 or 10 years? And of course, looking for the future as well, as we have seen in the past about $17 billion being pumped into terms of foreign direct investments into Sinai alone. So what does this say about the intentions of the government to be having Sinai as an industrial hub?
Of course, Sinai, I consider it as a safe haven for industry in Egypt. And
Yes.
I believe we have a lot of minerals not being utilized or not being used up to this point of time. So we should really invest in mineral industry. We have a lot of mineral, like the black sand, for example, in Kafr Sheikh. We have tons of, millions of tons in minerals in Sinai. And if we really should invest in mineral industry in Sinai, Egypt, it will be in a different place in the very near future. Of course, the government by itself, we should really integrate the private investment, and also we should attract more and more foreign direct investment. We have the human resources, we have the location, we have the logistic, we have the mineral. All we need is a up-to-date or the most advanced technology in order to build our mineral industry and so on. Of course, I believe 2024, it will be the year how to manage our resources. Sinai, for example, and all different government in Egypt, we should build an investment map for all our government in Egypt, including, of course, Sinai, which I consider it as the safe haven for development in the very near future.
Yes, Doctor, how to manage our resources, as you said, but is it on the level of the Republic, the level of Egypt as a whole, or we could be even as citizens, as individuals, we should be looking at better ways of having better access to our resources and how we spend them in 2024 and of course for the future, because you said before that the crisis and the cost of living crisis is all over the world, it's not just for Egypt nowadays.
Of course, managing your resources is very important, whether in the individual base or organizational base. I'm talking about, when we talk about government, the investment map, every government in Egypt, they have a certain competitive advantage. And we should focus on that and build the industry based on the competitive advantage for this government. I believe Sinai, as I mentioned, we have a lot of mineral, so we should focus on building a mineral industry in Sinai. Of course, in Sinai, it's connected now with the mainland. We should only one way to Sinai. Now we have several tunnels go from the mainland to Sinai, which it helps the logistic and so on in order to really increase the value, add value to whatever we have from our resources. Managing our material is very important, and that is the key issue in order for reducing the unemployment, reducing the inflation rate, increasing the growth rate in the future. And we should focus on that for every government in Egypt. They have to build their investment map. What is their competitive advantage? And we should invest on that competitive advantage for all different governments in Egypt. Of course, in the last few years, we started to make a development in Upper Egypt, for example, which it was isolated before, and in many different governments and so on. Remember in Dumyat, for example, where they have furniture city of New Dumyat,
Yes.
that it added value and increased the export of furniture for Africa, for the Arab world, for the Middle East, and even for Europe. The black sand factory, for example, we didn't really best use our material from black sand. It used to be individual, take the raw material and export it outside, and we import it later on as ships and so on. Now with joint venture between Egyptian government and China, we start to have added value to this raw material, which is black sand, and we start to produce a product from that. Of course, adding value, that is a very important issue. We should really focus on that in order to increase our revenue and in order to increase our export. And when you increase your export, you will be able to reduce the exchange rate in the near future.
Yes, doctor, we have better access now to Sinai in general, and we have better access to different parts of the governorates of Egypt, as you mentioned, in Upper Egypt. The infrastructure as a whole, the investments that we have seen here in the country in terms of building new cities, constructing a new capital, having more bridges and tunnels, and all those infrastructure materials and the infrastructure developments that we have seen under the tenure of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. How can we be using them to in a better way in the near future, and more specifically in 2024 for the economy?
Of course, in order to really export, you need to have a logistic. Logistic means infrastructure. When we talk about attracting foreign direct investment, the foreign direct investment, it will not come to you unless you have a high level of infrastructure in terms of roads, tunnel, and so on. And Egypt, it's blessed, the location of Egypt, it is one of its competitive advantage. We are really in the Red Sea and in the Mediterranean Sea, and we have the Suez Canal and so on, and we have the Nile River. All of this is means of transportation. And remember, Egypt, its location, it's in the heart of the world. If we really build an industrial base in China or any other government, with this infrastructure in terms of roads and transportation and so on, which it reduces the transportation costs. For example, Chinese, Russian, all European country and even the state willing to reduce their transportation costs. If they come and they invest in Egypt, they will reduce the transportation costs by about 70%. And that is why, because Egypt is close to the Mediterranean Sea, to the Red Sea and Suez Canal and the Nile River, which we can really build a road, for example, in the Nile River to go to Africa and so on. All of that, and of course in Egypt, when we worked in the last few years in energy to expand, we have an excess supply of energy right now, and we start to export our energy to other part of the world and so on. And all of that, it really attracts foreign direct investment. What's really, we have the labor force, we have the materials, we have the transportation, our all means of transportation, all means of logistic. What we need is simply to attract new technology, and attract new technology, we have to attract foreign direct investment, and that's what we call it as win-win situation. The foreign direct investor and the local investor, it will win from that, and the Egyptian economy, it will win in that. It's a win-win strategy.
Yes, the foreign direct investments, what is lacking in terms of the Egyptian attractiveness for the other people living outside of Egypt, for the potential investors living outside of Egypt, looking from the outside about the potential investment opportunities here in the country, in your opinion? What is lacking for them to be coming from outside of Egypt into the country, and of course having more investments and getting more money out of it, a win-win situation for both parties?
Absolutely, the process. And when we talk about the process, it is a delay. And remember, last year, or this year to be exact, President Sisi issued what is called as the gold medal for to reduce the process. Instead of taking months, it should take days. And instead of taking days,
the bureaucracy.
It should take, bureaucracy. And we have the red tape. It is really, we should really work on that in the current year or in year 2024, is to provide a good investment law in order to facilitate or to attract more and more foreign direct investment. And when I say foreign direct investment, I add to it a local investor. And as you mentioned, for Egyptian outside of Egypt, where they come and invest in Egypt, and we saw this model in the, for example, in many industrial zone in Egypt. For example, early in 2023, when President Sisi visited the industrial zone in Nasr City, for example. We
Yes.
saw a lot of success story where they feeding industry, where they produce in Egypt and transport and export to Europe and many other countries in the world. It's a very successful story, and we should really attract the Egyptian who are really immigrated to other countries of the world, to the States, to Canada, to many other countries, to attract them to come and invest them. We have a lot of success story, and we should really focus in our media in this success story. The more we really celebrate this success, the more we attract more and more and more foreign direct investment. And we should really get rid of the red tape. We should ease the process of establishing new business. That is very important, and it doesn't need a lot of work to do that, to restructure our process and proceeding and so on. Will be able to attract more and more foreign direct investment. For example, today, President Sisi have a meeting with Dr. Rania Al-Mashat, for example,
Yes.
in order to work in that file in the year 2024, how to attract foreign direct investment. We have a lot of ambassador Egyptian, which they are immigrated to many different parts of the world. We should use them in order to encourage foreign direct investment to come and invest in Egypt. That is doable.
Yes, in terms of the black market, as you've mentioned, Doctor, before during the course of the episode, how can we be limiting the damages that are taking place due to the processes that are taking place over the black market in different fields? Because you've mentioned that it is more about the mindset, it's more about the mentality of the Egyptians themselves and, of course, the citizens living within the country, that we need to be going away from the black market and controlling the prices by the government. Do you think that this is doable?
In the short term, no. But in the long term, if you build a strategy for really, there is a huge gap between the official market and the black market.
Yes.
And of course, one of our resources of our income, it comes from taxes, for example. It comes from the Egyptian working abroad and transferring their money to their home and to their country. If you see the huge difference as an individual, where he can find the difference between Egyptian pound and dollar, for example, it goes for a huge deviation, and that is a personal use. But it's really culture, how to build a culture, how to feed the central bank have a very important role to balance between the official price for our exchange rate and the black market. And of course, that is in the short term. We cannot, but in the long term, if we build a strategy for how to enhance and how to build in our industrial base, it will be able to increase in your export, and the market will correct itself. It's a behavior issue, it's a culture issue, but in the long run, we can get rid of it, inshallah.
Yes, one of the benchmark successes that we have seen under the tenure of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is the field of real estate, building new cities, building, of course, a new capital, the new administrative capital, having the bridges and the roads and the tunnels and the monorail and all of those means of transportation as well that are linking parts of Egypt together. How can we be marketing such a success in this field for the people living outside of Egypt to be coming to Egypt, to be buying an apartment, a flat, a villa, any unit?
Of course, there's a lot of initiative that happened last year for attracting Egyptians from abroad to come and invest in real estate. Remember, I believe in order to really increase your growth, real estate economy is not the economy, it's not the driving factor for improving your growth rate, but it is one part of it. But it was a lot of initiative from the government for Egyptian abroad to come and invest, give them in terms of houses, land, and so on, in terms to bring your car from abroad and so on.
Yes.
The government give a lot of initiative for that. But my point is, in order to really improve your economy, in order to reduce the inflation, we have to focus on industry. And when I say Egyptian people outside of Egypt come invest, we should really focus in investing in industry. We should really focus investing in agriculture. That is the only mean in the near future it will bring the Egyptian economy back on track.
Yes, in
And it
20
will reduce the inflation at the same time.
Yes, doctor. In 2024, in terms of the growth rate, because you mentioned that we are still on the right track, we are still on the positive side of a growth rate for 2023 and 2024. In terms of a projection, a measure, in your opinion, where could we be going in 2024? How far can we go?
Of course, as I mentioned before, we have a lot of threats around us.
Yes.
And I believe to year 2024, it will bring a lot of resolution between all fraction in whether in Libya, whether in Sudan, whether in other part in the area and so on. And that is external environment. It affects in a way or another the stability of our economy. But I believe with the leadership of President Sisi, and for his next 6 years, he will focus on industry, agriculture, and so on. He will focus on attracting more and more foreign direct investment, and that is very important to bring our growth rate to the right track again. Of course, it is not President Sisi alone or the government alone. We should really, all Egyptian, whether inside Egypt or outside Egypt, we should unite together in order to really make Egypt great again, inshallah, in the near future. It is a collaborative approach. It is really, our strategy focus on that. We should really, all of us, all Egyptian, from all different fractions, should stand behind their leadership in order to make the dream of President Sisi, which he stated a few years ago, is to build the Egyptian mentality, to build the Egyptian culture again and again. And when you mention building a new city, building a new industrial zone in all different parts of Egypt, that is in order to make Egyptian people believe their dignity again and so on.
How can the agriculture and industry be affected by the initiative of Hayat Karima, or a decent life?
Of course, as I mentioned before, we are moving different tracks. Remember when we talk about agriculture, for example, last year it really invested in 1.5 million acres in Egypt, and really we don't suffer from agriculture in terms of fruits and terms of vegetables. We have our needs we produce here in Egypt. In terms of industry, we have a lot of industrial zone and industrial city, it happened. And of course, all of that is really, and we work in a parallel way with decent initiative with the United Nations. Consider the initiative life or in decent life initiative as a role model for social responsibility all over the world. And that is a major step, of course, with the building my project and so on, which encourage a lot of people to, a lot of youth to have their startup business and so on. For example, a startup or Abda, for example, and where it's a cooperation from the Egyptian government and young people to build their small business and intermediate size business and so on. I believe if we are working on all tracks,
Yes.
industrial track, in agriculture track, social responsibility track, tourism track, and so on, all of this is combined, it will move Egypt from one place to another place in the near future.
Yes, Dr. Saeed Al-Kholy, the former Dean of the Faculty of Commerce in Ain Shams University. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
You're very welcome, and keep hope alive and cross your finger.
Thank you very much. And this brings us to the end of Money Means Business for the final time in 2023. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.